bring it in. G'day everybody, thanks for stopping by. In today's video, we're going to take a quick look at what's in the boxes behind me that were sent out to me for the purpose of review from EcoFlow. If you follow the channel, you know we've done some EcoFlow stuff before. We've got the EcoFlow, I think it was a 110 watt panel. We were hoping for a solar panel and did ask for a solar panel, but unfortunately that didn't arrive. This is the original River from EcoFlow, the little River 2. This was when they changed the battery chemistry. I think this was NMC, and then they changed over to the LiFo 4. And I got to tell you, with all the different solar generators I've got inside in the various sizes, I've always said if you watch my reviews, for me, these solar generators start once they hit that sort of 1,000 watt hour range. That's just when I find them more useful. You can run more things. They're more useful as far as a power outage. You know, shit hits the fan, that type of scenario. So we're going to take a look at the Delta 2, which I think is around about 1,000 odd watt hours. I guess the entry point for the larger type solar generators from EcoFlow. With any of these solar generators, regardless of brand, you know, regardless of the label that's on the box, and EcoFlow is no different, they all do their promotions. Several times a year, you're going to find these things are going to come on promotion. You're going to have your Black Friday sales on Amazon. They've got summer sales. They'll have Christmas sales. So my advice to you is if you're looking at a solar generator, just hang out and wait for the sales and grab yourself a bargain. So with that said, I'll have a look online. I think the reason they were pumping these out at this point is I think they've got a sale coming up. So if I can get the details of that sale, I'll chuck it down in the description, chuck it up on the screen, whatever. But you'll have a look. But definitely make sure you keep an eye out for the sales when they come around, and then jump on one. And probably your best way to grab these is in a bundle if you're looking at doing that. Just makes everything just that little bit cheaper. You know, you get it with a solar panel and get it with the alternator charger that we're going to be having a look at here. Now, whilst we're going to be having a look at the Delta 2, the star of the show is going to be what's in this other box. That's the alternator charger that we're going to be having a look at. That's the one that everybody's referring to as a game changer. I hate that. I hate following the trends on YouTube, so you won't hear me saying that. But I think it's a definite bonus as far as charging up one of these in the car. So typically we've been limited to around about the 100 and 120 odd watts just with a Siggy plug, plugging it in. Not from a limitation of the machines themselves, but from a limitation from the wiring on the Siggy sockets. They're typically wired for around about, or limited to around about 10 amps. Some of them are 9, some of them are 8, some of them are 15. But the limitation comes from the Siggy socket in the car. So you can't push that circuit any harder. One of the limitations and one of the reasons that I have avoided going with a portable battery pack like this in the back of the cars is it's just easier to go and grab yourself a portable battery or a battery pack, install that in the car, set up your DC-DC charger, and pumping them with 40 odd amps. What this is going to give us the ability to do is connect it up to our alternator, same as you do on a DC-DC charge, same as I've got in the Pajero and the same I've got in the Commodore there. This is going to be a nice addition for charging these up in your car on the go. I do find they are quite limited on temp as far as how they handle heat and whether they will, and their discharge and charging protections. And this one's no different. I think some of the other units I've seen around about 60 odd Celsius. Before they'll cut out. This one's 113 Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius. Now, some days here, the ambient temperature, once we get into summer, we're going to have days over 45 degrees here. Certainly, throwing this in the back of a hot car, you know, it's going to see 90 odd degrees in there. So it's not going to, it's going to stop running the fridge basically. That's not a bad thing. That's a safety measure. But I do find I get a little bit more flexibility with my standard BMSs and my external batteries. Usually, again, up to around that 60 degrees. It can take up to 1200 watts input. We'll see how that charges up on AC. Total output, 1800 watts. Righto, so welcome back to the test table. So here's our Delta 2. We're just going to be plugging it into the AC. Now this is obviously the supplied AC cable that'll just plug into the AC in the back of your Delta 2. So what you're seeing here is just the new DIY battery pack, 304 amp hours. It's going to go into the caravan. So just currently in testing mode, and just built it last night. So putting some power into that. Whenever I'm charging up new batteries, etc., I like to do it outside. These are the same chemistry that's in here. So LifePo 4. So it's the safer chemistry. Here's some relays clicking inside. Here's our input up the top here. So she's ramping up. 1203, okay, nice. As far as heat management, you've got 2 fans on this side. These are pulling in. And then we've got 2 fans on this side, which are pushing out. And there is already a little bit of heat being generated from pushing in 1200 watts, but it's what I would call reasonably quiet. I mean, for 4 of those little fans, I don't know whether it's the fins that they've got on here, whether it's the fans that they've put in here, but those are nice and quiet for 4 fans running. On average, if you're going to plug this in, you're definitely going to get a charge in around about an hour, because these things will soften the charge or lessen the charge as they start to get around to about that 100%. This is typically how I would roll. This is the sort of stuff I like to play with. You know, I like my solar and I like my stuff in a box, but this is typically how I would set up my systems, and I like piecing it together and grabbing different bits and putting it all together. Call it a hobby, if you will, or an interest. Historically, I would say and have said that until you get to the big size units of these, and then you get your options of charging and stuff like that, these for me weren't a replacement for this, right? 304 odd amp hours worth of battery. Batteries aren't just about how much usable capacity you've got, it's about how you get them charged, because they're no good to you if you can't charge them up after you've used them. And I like big capacity, I like to be able to charge them quick, because I like to use lots of power. I like all my gadgets and stuff, right? So now that they've got an 800 watt capacity for charging this thing on the go while I'm driving, so throwing this in the back of the car and charging up through 800 watts, they're starting to get a hell of a lot closer to this sort of setup for me. And that line between DIY portable battery pack, buy a big capacity battery off the shelf, set up your own system, buy a plug and play unit off the shelf, 2 connections to your battery, and away you go. I got to tell you, they're getting really, really close. I can buy the external battery for this and plug that in the side and have it all charged off that 800 watts in the car. And then I've got my bigger battery capacity. I'm just going to quickly plug this into some solar panels. We're going to chug it. We're going to chuck on the 100 watter and just see how that goes in the background. And then I've got a 600 watt solar panel there as well. Now, as far as the input goes for solar, we still have our standard little flap. EcoFlow likes their little flaps on the units. So we've got this one on the back here. It's got an XT60. We've got the AC input, and then we've got an AC reset. Exactly the same as you've seen on the back of this one. This one did have a grounding screw, which is interesting. This does not. I like, and look, this is just my preference, but I like to have my outputs separate to my inputs. Now, I am just going to sit it out in the sun because this is Australia, and this is the sort of thing this is going to have to put up with, you know, for real life scenarios. Just have a look and see what we get. I was having to think about it, but it's looking like we're going to get about 90 watts out of that. I haven't exactly angled it perfectly to the sun, but we'll let that run for a second. So there's the 600 watt solar panel we've got there. 420 watts, 418 going in. How good is that for a solar panel? So based on that 420 odd watts going in, that's going to take about 2 hours to get that charged up, which is going to give us a nice amount of time to have a look at this alternator charger. I always like to have a look and just see what they've written on their boxes to see how genuine they're being. I'm not seeing anything here that's what I would call a Furby or a fib. 800 watts, 1.3 hours to charge 1 kilowatt. Now, that's just basic math. 8 times faster. Now, the 8 times faster is comparing itself to the SIGGI socket that you would typically use, that you would normally plug into your XT60 on the back. It's just a SIGGI socket to an XT60, and again, based on the limitations of the output of the SIGGI socket in the car, you'd normally see around about 100 watts. This is 800 watts, so that's where they're pulling the 8 times faster figure from. The unit itself, which, yeah, okay, does have a bit of weight. Looks very similar to a modem, I guess. Quite different to what we would normally see from a DC-DC charger. It's quite flat. It is all metal, so I'm assuming that's using the case as a heat sink. We've got some outputs here. This is RJ45. This is the proprietary. This is the proprietary plug that it's going to use to connect to our Delta 2. This is coming from the car. It's all labeled so you can see what it is, and then this is just a node for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Super sleek little unit. This is Victron's version of the DC-DC charger. This is a 1230. Outputs 360 watts, so around about 30 amps. I have now gone to the XS50, which is a bit smaller than this unit, but as a size comparison, it's not massively smaller, but it is a smaller unit from this sort of perspective. Height-wise, there's a considerable difference. So the profile of this is much lower from a height perspective. Now, apologies if I seem like I'm running through this, but for me, I don't find unboxings that interesting. I just want to see how the unit works. I'm going to assume you're here to do the same. So this is a little mounting bracket. There are some mounting holes on the back of the unit itself. So there is a bracket supplied. There's this massive cable that is going to run from your battery to the actual alternator charger, which is what they're calling it. What do they call it? Yeah, just a EcoFlow alternator charger. So this is the 2 cables, actually. The one that's going to run from your starter battery, your alternator output, and then the other one which is going to run from this unit over to our Delta 2, which is over the back, taking a charge. With this, it's literally 2 connections. You're going to need to make this connection for your positive and your negative. Here we go. To your battery. Connect this to the other side of the fuse block here. That'll go to your battery. Plug this into here, this into here, and then this into our Delta 2. And up. So ultimately with those 3 connections, battery to alternator charger to Delta 2, and then just plug in whatever you want. It really doesn't get much simpler than that. And then we'll throw it in, we'll run it, we'll just see how she goes. That's what we can do. So this is typically how the back of the Commodore would look when, you know, not looking at being away camping. So what I've got is a Brass Monkey 30-litre compact fridge that just typically holds my drinks, etc. For going backwards and forwards to work. Just means when I come out the end of a shift, jump in a hot car, I can grab myself a nice cold drink, ready for the drive home. Now beside that, and as I said, not the prettiest of installs, is literally the King's battery box with a King's 100 amp hour battery in that. Again, if you follow the channel, you've seen this before. That is being run off just a Renogy 40 amp DC-DC charger. Now the convenience of this is that the battery for the Commodore is in the back here, so all the connections are nice and short and sweet. That's just connected to an Anderson plug with all the required fuses, etc. there. And then the fridge is literally just plugged into the Anderson plug just there. The other thing that I had to do was run a trigger wire down to the Renogy because that's how that works. It doesn't have a battery sense option like we do in the EcoFlow alternator charger. So I've actually got a trigger wire running down to the Renogy just here. Because the EcoFlow alternator charger has the voltage sense in it, we don't need to worry about that trigger wire, so I've just folded it back and tucked it back in the side of the car. Once you've run that wire once from the front to the back of the car, you're a little bit reluctant just to yank it out in case you want to use it in the future. So it really doesn't get much easier than this. Now I am using metal bloody spinners, so I need to be careful while I'm touching the positive here. So one piece of feedback that I know everybody seems to give on these solar generators is, can we have some other means of DC output other than the SIGGI socket? Now I know this is a legacy thing, I know a lot of your fridges come with SIGGI socket, but give us an Anderson plug, give us an XT60 output, give us something, because these are crap in off-road or general situations in car or high vibration situations. All right, so we've now got power on our fridge. That should come straight on and we should see a load, and we do. Fridge has only been off for a little while we switched all this over. I guess that talks to the simplicity of this install or of this product and the way it works together. Yeah, depending on whether you've got to route that wire or not, that's going to be the longest part of your install. Connecting it to the battery and plugging in a couple of plugs takes you 5 minutes, like 10 minutes at most. Running your wire is going to be a challenge. One other thing that I see as a bit of a challenge is that if you need to run that through your firewall, it's a fairly thick cable. But you're not going to be better off or any worse off if you were routing your own wires and running your own. You're going to be running that thick cable anyway, same as this, probably a minimum of 6 gauge, possibly even larger, 420 for example. So, you know, having to push that through the firewall, no biggie. What I need to do is just connect this up to the Bluetooth app. I've already got the EcoFlow app installed on my phone, obviously. I need to connect it up because we've only got a small alternator in the Commodore. I think it might only be something like 80 amps. It might be sub 100 amps, not the 140 that we've got in the Pajero. So I just need to be aware of the current that we're pulling through this system and then putting into this battery, into the Delta 2. App gives us the ability to limit that. With the Renogy, it was a 40 amp DC-DC charger, but if you set the dip switches right and connected it up right, it would do 20 amps. This does the same thing, much more convenient to be able to control it over the app. So what I might do is just jump in, connect up, have a look at the system, and then we'll turn it down to start with. And then if everything goes well, we'll check all our connections, and then we'll bump it up and we'll see if we can go the full wazzer. Now how I want to run this is exactly the same as I had that portable battery pack in the back of the car. I literally want the car to charge it when I'm driving backwards and forwards to work. I'm not going to have any issues with 800 watts doing that on an hour, doing that over 2 hours with a 1000 watt hour battery. That's going to be more than enough. Whilst I would have liked the larger version, I always want the biggest one possible. This is going to suit this use case scenario perfectly, I think. And I was looking at putting a flexible solar panel on the top of the roof of the Commodore as well, and seeing how we go with that. Okay, so just a quick one. I've noticed it says up on the screen here. It has disconnected our DC circuit. So it has disconnected our fridge during the upgrade process. You can see that the fridge is turned off. And on the alternator charger, the light has gone off on that as well. So it looks like the Delta 2 is talking to the alternator charger and telling it, just hang on a couple of minutes, bud, I'm doing an upgrade. So it is coming back on. I'm just curious to see whether it turns our fridge back on, turns a DC circuit. Might be a bit of a trap for young players. It has turned back on. It has turned back on, but it hasn't turned our DC circuit back on. So it hasn't gone back into its original state prior to the update. So you'll need to be aware of that. If you've got something plugged in running and then you go and do an update, then you need to go back in and turn that circuit back on. So we need to turn our DC circuit back on. We're all good. The alternator charger red light has come back on the front. So I'm going to go and jump in, start this baby up. The alternator charger is going to go from a red light to a green light. You don't need to see that. I think the more interesting stuff's going to be happening in the car. So come and have a look there with me as well. I'm going to go back to the alternator charger. And I just want to be monitoring that when we turn this on. It is showing car battery port under voltage. I'm not real sure about that. Set the start voltage according to the car engine voltage. That's the alert that we get. Whilst it's showing up as an error or an alert, it does show error, that is its normal functionality. We don't want it to be starting up yet because the car is not running. Let's start the car and we'll see what changes here. Right, so straight away we've gone to 14.4, 14.7. I think there's going to be a time delay for how long it takes for the alternator charge to actually start, and it's gone straight away. Well, it's taken 20 seconds or so, but we can see here straight away we've gone to 300 watts. Now it is also showing a time. It's showing 2 hours and 11 minutes. So I'm assuming that it must be talking backwards and forwards with the Delta 2 to get that information. With the 40 amp Renogy, we're putting in around about 500 watts. So I think we can safely bump this up to about 500 watts. Just going to go into the maximum output power and use the slider, 500 watts, and back. And straight away, the response is almost immediate. So we're now putting in 500 watts. So that's the car's going to be more than happy with that. Let's just duck around the back and just check those terminals. So we're just going to duck in and just put our fingers on these terminals, and we've got 0 heat there. These cables are fine. No heat here. Negative terminal, fine. So we've got no heat at all, pushing 500 watts, 40 something odd amps through those cables. That's fine, through those joints. Here on the Delta 2, again, it's showing 500 watts. And our fridge is on and running, and we've got a green light on our alternator charger. So literally that is the setup, up and running. Again, look, depending on how you need to run that wire to get to your battery. I have seen some people just as a temporary thing throw it through their window in some of their reviews. You could do that. What I'm probably going to do is take that lead and cut it and put an Anderson plug on one end, so I can leave an Anderson plug with a fuse connected directly to my battery, and I can switch between units, switch between this, switch between the portable unit. If I want to take this out of the car, whatever the case may be, it's just going to give me modularity. The other thing is that it's going to make it easier for me to switch between cars as well. So I'll be able to plug this into the Pajero if I want to take it out for the Pajero for the day. If I want a portable power station, I can take it out with my fridge. This one's going to be fully charged on 800 watts on traveling, be able to pull it out. And that's the benefit of having this unit and not a fully installed unit or a fully installed system in the car. It's the pick up and go aspect of the unit as well. And then obviously there's got a built-in inverter as part of the whole system. That's also a bonus. Let's go and ramp this up to our 800 watts. Okay, so I've turned off the car. We just had a delivery turn up. Car's been sitting there for about 5 minutes while I had a chat. The alternator charger has turned off. It is now showing 47 odd watts output, which is running our fridge. The alternator charger has turned off. We've gone back to a 12.8, which is our resting voltage for our battery. Now this is certainly not unique to this unit. Most of your DC chargers is going to have that functionally built into it. Go to the alternator charger, showing 12.6, and again it's just dropping to a resting voltage. Got some lights on, etc. But 12.6 is about right for a starter battery. Go start the car up. So it was obviously not coming on whilst I had the car on accessories like the other one would. Voltage is going to go straight up to about 14 volts, 14.7, nice. Green light comes on, all the little things start to move, and it should go to that 500 watts, and it's almost straight away. So that's nice, so it's gone straight away to that 500 watts. I would have thought there might be a little bit more of a delay on that to allow the starter battery to get its voltage and get back up to charge. Charge mode input, 11 to 31 volts and a maximum of 76 amps. So it's saying the most it's going to take is 76 amps. So why there's 125 amp fuse in there, I don't know. We'll certainly drop that. We might even go down to 80 amps or 90 amps or something like that, 90 amp fuse. Now somebody else referred to this in one of their videos as well, and I think we've just seen it. So I've just dropped the starting voltage to 14 volts, and then that's what we're saying. We're saying to the system, look, we don't want you to start until we hit 14 volts, right? And the system's going, that's fine. Anything under that, I won't start at all. Once we get over that, I'm going to take any excess, right? So because we are currently sitting at exactly 14 volts, we've just dropped to 13.9 and it's cut off. Let me get the car some revs. So it's interesting that the car now isn't recognizing that battery as a load because it's been disconnected. So it's not upping the alternator voltage to compensate for that. So we definitely need to put a starting voltage of 13 volts. I know others have set theirs at 12. I want mine set as high as possible. So now at 13.6, 13.7, we should see the unit switch on. It's taking a little bit of time. Again, it was taking about 20 seconds or something to get it starting voltage. And again, now that we're at 13.7, it's gone straight back up. The car has seen it as a load, so it's now raising that voltage. We're back up to 13.9, 14 volts. So obviously what it does, if your voltage is close to what your start voltage is, it's only gonna sip at the power. If your voltage goes right up, so 14 odd volts or something, you're only asking for 13 volts to start charge, then you're gonna get your maximum power. So if it's seeing there's available power, it's gonna say, yep, I'm gonna take all of that, and it's gonna charge your battery. So if you're having issues possibly with, you've got it set to 13 volts or 14 volts and it's only charged at sort of a couple hundred watts or something like that, try lowering your start voltage and then you'll probably see more output power. So, because we're seeing 14 volts, I'm now going to go over, change our maximum output power to 800 watts and we'll see what we get. So, 700, 788. Now, the alternator has dropped right down. You can see there, it's dropped down to 13 volts. Now 13 volts, as I was just saying, is our start voltage that we want to see. And because we're sitting on that 13 volts, we're only seeing 663, I think you can see that. So it's not taking that maximum 800 watts. But if I go and change that to our start voltage, being happy with, we don't want to go 11 watts, but 12 volts. So if I change my start voltage to 12 volts, I reckon, and 800 watts, we'll see that go back up. And there it is. 725. And just for S and Gs, let's go back and change that start voltage to 11 volts. System's going to think it's getting massive power. 791, 794, 795. So I think you can see that. We're giving a little bit of revs as well. 798, 799, 800. There she is. All right, so if you are seeing, and I'm just going to again just race around and we'll just quickly check those terminals. Give me a sec. Okay, those terminals are fine, and I'm just going to bump this back. I don't want to be pushing through 800 watts through that little alternator that we've got. 500 watts, and we're going to do a start voltage of 13 volts. So I think that's fair. So again, because I'm running the car backwards and forwards 2 hours a day, I'm able to put 100% into that battery through that 2 hours worth of driving at that 450 watts or thereabouts, close enough to. The other thing that I can tell you without a doubt, hands down, that 800 watt alternator charger will have this thing, even if you're just running around for short trips, and I'm just running a fridge, so I can only give you that experience. It's more than enough to keep this fridge topped up. Keep in mind that I've got an hour trip to work, an hour trip on the way home, so it's 2 hours. So effectively I'm putting over 1600 watt hours into that battery, just going backwards and forwards to work. If I was making the purchase, I would go with the larger battery capacity, probably the Delta 2 Max, I think it is. Or I might even look at getting the external battery to go with this one as well. That being said, that's what I would probably do if I was making the purchase myself. Obviously, being in this situation, doing the YouTube thing, chances are a couple of month, I'm going to get something they'll send out to me again. So for me to go and start investing money into an ecosystem and that sort of stuff, probably not really that wise, so probably not going to happen. One of the guys at work was looking at purchasing a DC-DC charger and a battery setup, and he came and hit me up about it. He said, look, what do you recommend? He was quoted something like $3.5 grand to deck his Prado out in a Red Arc system, which would also include a battery and all that sort of stuff. Now he was steering away from lithium. He wasn't really interested in lithium, and I said, mate, just come out and have a quick look at what I've got in the car. 800 odd bucks. So I showed him the King battery setup and the Renogy DC-DC charger, and I said, look, this is ultimately all you're going to need. And look, I will admit that it was looking like a dog's breakfast. It all just been thrown in the back of the car. I did make the recommendation, look, mate, you ultimately want to probably get yourself at least a minimum of 100 amp hour battery, because his car's going to be parked up there with mine in the heat. So when I started testing this, I said, look, just hold your horses on spending your money. I've got something new to test, and I think this thing is going to be right up your alley, and you really need to have a look at it. So I'll get this up to him next week and just show him how simple this thing is in install. That's going to save him on install costs from the mechanics, your auto electrician, obviously. All he's going to need to do is run the cables through the firewall, connect it up to the battery, set this thing up the back somewhere, screw it in, throw his fridge in and throw the Delta 2 over the back, and he's ready to go. And from a price perspective, this is certainly worth him looking at as a package, and certainly they've got the promos and stuff coming up. Again, my recommendation is always buy them on promos, and because promos and discount codes come up all the time. And if I get a discount code, I'll put it down in the description. But promos and discount codes on solar generators and the like, EcoFlow is no different, come around all the time, and I think there's something coming up relatively soon. Again, if there is, and I get wind of it while I'm editing the video, I'll stick it down in the description. You can have a look at that. For me though, whilst I got this sent out for the purpose of review, as I mentioned in previous videos, I don't sign up to affiliate programs, so I don't get paid additional. There was and there are offers these days, because my channel's getting bigger, of being paid for reviews, and I don't like that, because that becomes an ad, and that's not what I want to do here on the channel. So so bottom line is, don't care whether you go and buy it or not. I'm literally just got the product sent to me for free. It's great to be able to create some content and then just share my opinions and share my views and share my experience. From that point on, it's entirely up to you what you do with that information. Go and watch other YouTube reviews. If they start using terms like game changer, take it with a grain of salt. But my experience with this thing has been excellent. Look, it's one of the, if you're looking at these sorts of brands, Bluetti, Jackery, EcoFlow, they're up here as far as quality goes. And I can tell you from previous experience with a little River 2, where I had a bit of an issue with that, just like a little firmware glitch thing that we had. The amount of focus that I got from those guys, from their customer service team, trying to work with me to figure out what was going on, figure out why I couldn't get the update, and the back and forth was amazing. It even continued after I had finished the product review, and it had already put the product review out, and of course it was positive. I was happy with the product. They were really focused on trying to find out what that problem was and get that sorted. How beautiful is that sky out there? Let's have a look at that. How beautiful is that sunset out there? Just beautiful. And you'll see the Pajero and the Caravan out there. And ultimately that is going to be the setup for the back of the Commodore for me traveling to and from work. Just want to wrap it up. So overall, really happy with the product. I think I may have been going into this a little bit, no, this is not going to suit my needs. I still do want better access to the 12 volt side. Now, keeping in mind that I haven't sussed out all the other devices, and there may be other devices in the Delta range that may give you that access. I'm not sure, that would be up to you to check. I'm strictly talking about the Delta 2. Now that I've found out that it will happily run my little air fryer here, the air fryer is now going to go in the back of the car, and that's going to travel backwards and forwards to work with me with the fridge. And then when I come out of work, if I've got any leftover lunches or something like that that I haven't eaten on night shift, on the way home, I'll throw them into that air fryer and heat them up and then eat them on the road. Ultimately, it's a very usable unit. It's going to be reliable. It's got the EcoFlow name on it. This 800 watt alternator charger, which can also be used to send charge back to your battery in the event of a flat battery, just through the app, or can be used to maintain your battery, is absolutely awesome. If you're going to use the battery maintenance thing, just have a look at that, because I haven't had much time. I haven't spent much time on that side of things. Not something I'm going to use regularly, I don't think, but it was just putting a constant 100 watts to that battery. Now, I don't know whether that's just a standard thing, in which case this thing would be dead in about 10 hours, or whether it does that temporarily, and just, I don't know. I don't know how that works. If I can find something that'll describe that, I'll put it up on the screen and give you some info. At this stage, I don't see any reason why I can't use this as a replacement for that King's battery that I previously had in there. I don't need to worry about running that 12 volt air fryer. I can run the 240 volt. It's obviously going to keep that fridge running, so I've got the inverter, and then I've got the solar input in here as well. So all of those things have me leaning towards using this instead of that battery pack. So that's it. Thanks very much for stopping by. That's been the EcoFlow Delta 2 and the 800 watt alternator charger. The solar is not dead, despite what some of the other reviewers have said. Now that they've got this thing, put this in combination with your solar and you're off to the races. Anyway, that's it. Again, thanks very much for stopping by, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.